A vote for BCuddi poetry is a stupid one because I'm not running, but not as stupid as some of the old laws for elections. Let's find out in this week's Slam Synopsis. Our country has gone in a better direction with elections. No, we don't have perfection, but the ease of selection has been important corrections to our laws. But before we hit the timeline, let's remind about the rules. It's back to school. To be a president can't just be a resident or denizen, gotta be a citizen born natural, and everything will be satisfactual. Each state, there's no limit or censor. Virginia has 8, they're a friggin' press dispenser. You have to reside here for 14 years if you want to run for office, and the law is you have to be 35 by inauguration day, so you 34-year-olds can still run for the US of A. And thanks to Amendment 22, a press is through after term 2, because some people were a term whore and decided to serve 4. Today we vote on Tuesday, specifically after the first Monday, because farmers didn't have Hyundais to drive in. They needed time in to pray, travel the way, say yay or nay, and then back to the hay. There are 538 electoral college votes up for grabs. It's a drab and perfect system, but we can't dismiss them. A candidate needs absolute majority to win absolute authority, and that number is 270, and they become the hero. But should both candidates fail to hit that mark, the House of Reps steps in to briefly become the oligarch and choose our new, not monarch. In 1776, I think you know what got signed, our independence was outlined. Then the right to vote was strictly for property owners above the age of 21, aka white males. There were no real details in the Constitution with the exclusion of a federal standard for voting. Ever hear of the 3/5 compromise? It's comprised of text that would perplex you to the grave. A slave only counted as 3/5 of a human, but that was for population for the sake of taxes, representatives, and electoral college votes, so we brought them on boats, put them to work, but when it comes to counting them, old US, kind of a jerk. To start off, each candidate was a collector of elector votes, but only some states held general elections with little connection to other state govs. You cast your vote for 2 people, and whoever won got the presidency, and aw, how nice, they gave the runner-up vice. So George Washington Heights, our chart as the first presidente of the USA, and chopped down a cherry tree with his VP John Adams, who remember came in second in the voting. Also worth noting, the 1790 naturalization law saw a natural citizen as any white person barren of bad character staring at a flag for 2 years, but your vote was still pathetic if you didn't hit the genetic and economic lottery of being a white male with property. In 1800, there was a major issue between Jefferson and Adams, with results only separated by Adams, and the Constitution couldn't fathom what would happen. Jefferson and Aaron Burr were on the same team, and it would seem one electoral vote would be held from Burr, so Jefferson won and the election is done. But they tied, so the running mates caused serious debates in the House of Representatives, who were tentative 35 times, but Jefferson won thanks to some propaganda from Lin-Manuel Miranda, and that's why VP Burr and Hamilton hated each other. But why bother to tell you what you already know, because who hasn't seen that show? Amendment 12 delved into that whole era and became repaired by stating all electors need to specify the consenter between their presidential and VP presenter. Like Luigi defeating Falco, it's the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and what's interesting about that, aside from how I found a rhyme for it, is that it ended the Mexican-American War. What is it good for? Absolutely something. It guaranteed Mexicans be citizens living in territories, but typical story, some requirements made it tough to vote with glory. In 1856, North Carolina was the last to nix property ownership as a means to choose, so now all white men no longer sang the blues. If they ever did. In 1868, our country is starting to get great. The 14th Amendment meant that former slaves are one of us, but to vote for POTUS still gotta be a dude, and some states are rude because to each state their own method. Headed in a better direction 2 years later, Amendment 15 means that you can't deny a voice of choice because of race explicitly, so some states did not implicitly imposing tests and tax to deny blacks the best chance to vote for who wins the big dance. In 1872, women still can't vote. So in 1876, it's our centennial, and take it from this millennial, this is gonna sound a stupid sort. The Supreme Court ruled that Native Americans can't be citizens of America, so they American't. We ignored their rant. Then in 1882, wait till you hear this, the Chinese Exclusion Act bars people of Chinese ancestry from naturalizing to be on the U.S. squad, no escaping the clause. Then the Dawes Act of 1887 made Native Americans citizens who gave up their tribal affiliations on the foundations that were here first. Ain't old America just the worst? So in 1890, Wyoming got kindly and tired of whiny women and allowed them to vote, which I'm glad I wrote because Yellowstone was their only interesting tidbit, and that's about it. Hate me, Wyoming. I don't care. In 1919, it might seem our gov was getting creative. Native Americans who served deserve citizenship. Then 1 year later, the Roaring Twenties saw women scoring the 19th Amendment, which meant that all women can vote. How about that? I bet you campaign offices were like,
"Hey, where are the white women at?"
It's about damn time women are a part of this election. All this talk about women at polls is giving me a raging election. 1922, back to those who say you can't do. The Supremes fueled the rule that Japanese heritage is disparaged and cannot become citizens. I really think so. Then in 23, we see plenty of Asian Indians who are not able to naturalize. Then the US Gov got advised for the better. At its core, the 1924 Indian Citizenship Act acts as a grant for all Native Americans, but some states still say they can't, with some voting BS about tests and taxes. That's in our archives. In 1925, Filipinos are added to the No Asian Invasion list. Well, there was no entry list, but the gist is that they're still pissed that US citizens they would not consist. So in 1947, Miguel Trujillo took his anger up to 11. This Native American Marine was marooned at the ballot box, so the dude sued the rude state that screwed. New Mexico and Arizona were forced to retire their way off ways and let Native Americans have their presidential say. In 52, the Gov wasn't fair, and they thought of sharing our name in the McCarran-Walter Act that grants citizenship to all of Asian ancestry. Big piece of history. Then in 61, it's some nifty fun. There's instant interest in the District of Columbia. You heard, per, the 23rd conferred their right to fight for who they felt was right. End party. In 64, minorities get more with the 24th Amendment. See, someone can't be stopped if they don't pay the poll tax. I'm just reporting the facts. The Voting Rights Act is passed and forbids states from discrimination or imposing restrictions despite their convictions. It's a prescription for no more racial friction. Ever. In 1971, it's a great scene since the voting age is lowered to 18. This was thanks to Amendment 27-1. The hippies were done because those who fought and risked getting caught were not allowed to vote, so reform they sought. If you wonder how seriously they cared, just go watch Hair. Then in 75, they amended the Voting Rights Act to attach materials not in English for those who don't speak the tongue every contender was commonly applying to audibly explain their policies. In 2000, residents of U.S. colonies are now commonly quality citizens without the commodity of voting while floating. 4.1 million can't fill in a ballot to cleanse their political palate, but at least Apple didn't ignore because they can use the U.S. iTunes Store. So, yeah. If you're wondering about felons, in 2005, the National Commission had a mission for one federal election reform restoring their right to vote. Basically, it's very controversial. Only 38 states plus D.C. allow former felons to D.C. the light of the ballot board and regain entrance upon completion of their sentence. Don't avoid this like hot lava. An O2 Hava was passed in response to 2000 when Bush mustered luck because Florida was a cluster. Oh, shucks, there are now federal mandates to alleviate some of the stress of trying to cast one's vote, so the next time voters start swarming, we'll have a president who really likes global warming. And in 2009, the Military and Overseas Voter Empowerment Act not only empowers but establishes efficient efforts to affect a soldier's exposure to honor their guts with ballots that are absentees nuts. Got him! It never gets old! So it's probably too late to register. Don't shoot the messenger. I won't get political, but it's critical that you get analytical and vote. My campaign is to entertain with fun rhymes that border across lines, but if you think people should or should not border across our lines, then assign yourself a candidate and go participate, because even if you hate both, you can help the growth of this country by going to the polls and showing where the pulse is. Please. Your choice may not matter in the final result, but if 40% of adults think one way, then maybe one day we can consult to not insult the opposing cult and cut the slander and banter and live with less pander and more candor. It doesn't matter whether you're on the left or right wing, or if you always share Tommy Lauren or Sean King. Go outside and scream your beliefs to the sky, because we all know the rent is too damn high. In your opinion, you can help this country detox by going all the way to the ballot box. So let's make 2016 our election year GOAT, whether you're red, blue, yellow, or green. Let's all choose to vote. For the land and of the free and the home of the brave. Wait, you don't want to vote because our country isn't perfect? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be brief. The issue here is not whether we were unjust with our rules or took some liberties with our privilege. We did. But you can't hold our current election responsible for the behavior of a few corrupt, sexist individuals. For if you do, then shouldn't we blame the entire election system? And if the entire election system is guilty, isn't this an indictment of our government institutions in general? I put it to you, voters. Isn't this an indictment of our entire American society? Well, you can complain to me all you want, but I'm not going to stand here and listen to you badmouth the United States of America.
Gentlemen!
You're not walking out on this one, mister. You're finished. No more Delta. You bought it this time, Buster. I'm calling your national